Well, good morning, everybody, or good evening, or good whatever. Welcome to another edition of You and Me and Multiple Sclerosis. My name is Pam, and I've told you before I've been living with multiple sclerosis for almost 37 years now. And I understand that there's no cure. But that doesn't mean I'm not always looking for ways to make my daily life with multiple sclerosis a little bit less messy. And I'm sure that you feel the same way. Well, I thought about my different symptoms and the things that I could do to make it a little less hard on me and everyone around me. And one of the problems that I have, and maybe you relate to this too, is that I have a lot less control over my emotions than I used to. And for me, that takes the form of what I like to call micro rages. So something frustrates me, and before I can even try to get in front of my reaction, I'm just, lost it. It only lasts for a few minutes or not even that long. But it's not pretty, and it's not a thing that I enjoy. Plus, I'm sure it's not very healthy for me either to be going through that. Sometimes it even makes my heart race, whatever. It's not good. So I would really love to be able to fix it. I don't really know physiologically what's going on, but the way I picture it is the frontal cortex is where in your brain, that's kind of your seat of self-control, emotional regulation, self-regulation in general. And I feel like that with all the holes that have developed in my brain over the years I've had MS, that frontal cortex emotional control is full of holes as well. It's kind of like when you have a screen in front of a window, it keeps the bugs out, right? But if your screen starts to get all kinds of holes in it, the bugs don't stay out, they come on in. It's not like the bugs aren't there if you have a good screen, it's just that you are able to regulate them and keep them out. Okay, so that's kind of how I picture what's happening in my brain with multiple sclerosis. So I wanted to try and find some ways to keep that from happening. And I recently have been following a number of YouTube creators on the subject of minimalism, which is, well, it started out as architecture thing, but it's now kind of more of a lifestyle, homemaking, interior design kind of thing. And it's quite interesting to me because it really is focusing, or at least the channels that I've been following, they focus a lot on decluttering. What they say is that, most of us have way more possessions than we actually use, need, or even like. And they just kind of get stuffed into every nook, cranny, closet, drawer, whatever. And that the key to having a more peaceful life and wasting less time is to get rid of all the stuff that you neither use, need, or like. So that makes a lot of sense. And now over the past year or two, I've been doing that to a great extent. And it has helped. It really kind of has helped. So yeah, I appreciate that. But I think learned the most important lesson about this whole thing when I watched a video by a woman named Anna Marcoux, and I will link her video down in the comments section or in the description section so that you can see this also. She talks about minimalism versus maximalism. Now, I have some photos here that I pulled off the internet that will help give you an idea of what we're talking about. We talk about maximalism. You can probably guess that it's the opposite of minimalism, right? So hang on here. Now here is a typical minimalist living room. At least in the stereotypic view, right? You've got your very neutral color palette. You've got, oh, the obligatory green plant. Walls are generally white. There's not a lot of artwork on the wall. And if there is, it's usually one large piece. So you see how that looks. And then if you were to, instead of the minimalist aesthetic, if you decide that's not really for you and you want to do something else, then you might instead go to a more maximalist aesthetic. Okay, so here's a maximalist. And I guess I should have said to you that you need to pay attention to your body and how you react to each of these two rooms. So I'll go back here, do this again. So here's your minimalist room. And then think about how that makes you feel. And then here's the maximalist room. Think about how that makes you feel. Not every one of us has the same threshold, I guess you would say, for having things around ourselves, right? Some of us don't mind more things. Some of us get really stressed about having a lot of things. And part of having a mess and learning how to live with it successfully is getting a handle on what that actually looks like for us. What is our threshold of clutter tolerance or stuff tolerance? I'm not going to call it clutter, because to that maximalist that you just saw with that riot of color and many things there, they would not consider that clutter. A word that I have learned is the word curated. And when you're familiar with museum terminology, right, curating a museum collection means that you're being selective, that you're putting out the best stuff, that you're putting out the things that you want visible in your space. And so for a minimalist, the way they would curate their home is to have as few things as possible. The maximalist is not necessarily going for as many things as possible, but they're going for the things that add whatever they want their space to be. So in other words, the mood that they're trying to create, how they feel at home in their space. So it isn't a question of minimalism is boring and maximalism is hoarding. It's more subtle than that. It's more nuanced. And as I thought about it in terms of life with multiple sclerosis, I realized that minimalism and maximalism kind of represent for me this sensory continuum, if you will, where if I'm in a place where there's very little stimulation, right, a neutral palette, not much to look at, that sort of thing, that creates one frame of mind and probably brings my stress level down. And then in the other end of the spectrum, if I'm surrounded by the riot of color and pattern and movement and noise and whatever, to me that is sensory overload, and that is bound to increase my stress. And so I don't want that, obviously. That isn't good for me. But it's even more nuanced than that. So let me go ahead and go back to my pictures. So goodbye for a moment to this lovely maximalist living room. Okay, so for me, minimalism in certain spaces in my home would be a better thing. And this is just a screenshot of my bedroom, a part of my bedroom. And you can see that while it's not totally boring, the walls aren't white and the furniture isn't gray. And I actually have wood furniture and not some IKEA thing painted white, which seems to be the obligatory minimalist furniture. You can also see, though, that there's not a lot of stuff, right? There's not much on the walls. It's pretty calm and restful. So maybe in a space like a bedroom, that's a better thing. Now, on the other hand, here we are. Here is a shot of my study. Now, this is where I do all of the videos that you have seen. And the background that I have, well, let me just pull me up again real quickly. You can see, okay, this side of my study looks pretty minimal, right? I mean, there's not much going on here. And part of the reason for that is just because of the camera angle, and also because I like to use that white curtain as a background if I need to put text or something else in the video. It's nice to have a kind of almost a screen, like a movie screen here, to be able to do that. But as you can see from this shot of the other corner of the room, it isn't exactly minimalist. And I haven't even given you a photograph of my desk, because that would maybe even look beyond this and down into the messy category, I'm afraid. So yeah, maybe it would be better for me to have less stuff in here, but at least you can see that I have some organization to the stuff that's in here. There's a purpose for everything, and it would be more stressful for me to have that stuff harder to get at, because I do get at a lot of what's on that shelf. I get at a lot of that every day, and I kind of need to have that near me. So I think that for me, it's a goal always to make sure that I don't allow things to become more cluttered than they need to be. But I also recognize that stress can sometimes come from just having things around that are just in the way, or just annoy you because they're distracting, or they, well, one of the women who does YouTube creation on minimalism, she talks about the silent to-do list, and I can link her video down below as well. But she talks about the silent to-do list, which basically, what your things, when they are sitting out, they call to you in a way and say, you're supposed to fill me out, you're supposed to mail me, you're supposed to pay me, you're supposed to clean me, you're supposed to fold me, you're supposed to this, right? And that is very, very distracting and stressful. So you kind of want to minimize that in your life. But at the same time, if things need to be near and need to be convenient to you, or you get frustrated because you're constantly having to interrupt what you're doing so that you can get up and go across the room or to a different room to retrieve the item that's necessary for you to do the task, that can be stressful as well. Well, okay, this is kind of rambling, and I'm sorry about that. I think I could have done a better job of organizing my video, speaking of the stress of not having things at your fingertips. But I hope that you understand here what I'm getting at, and that is that you need to figure out where you are on the stress continuum, the sensory continuum, and not just all over all the time, but in each space that you live in and each task that you do. It's the best way for me to keep my stress at a manageable level. I won't say that I've achieved the perfection of a stress-free life, but this method of thinking through what needs to be in my space and what's just in the way and making me stressed has helped me tremendously, and I would hope that it could help you as well. I would love to know if anything like that is true in your case, if you have found similar things, if you have strategies that you're developing to help you manage your MS life a little better. It doesn't have to be about stress, it can be about anything. I would just love to know how you're coping day to day with the challenges that MS throws at you. As always, I am delighted to have spent this time with you, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video.